My internal alarm usually screams at me around 4:15 a.m., a full 45 minutes before the digital one on the nightstand actually buzzes. It's not because I'm some grind-set, rise-and-grind influencer. It's because panic is a much more effective stimulant than caffeine, and frankly, I can't afford the good caffeine anyway. I lay there in the dark staring at the popcorn ceiling of our cramped apartment in Columbus, listening to the radiator clank. Beside me, Mitchell was snoring, a soft, rhythmic, unbothered sound that filled me with a sudden, irrational spike of rage. He slept like a man who didn't have a care in the world. Meanwhile, my brain was already doing the poverty math, a mental spreadsheet that updated every single morning before my feet even touched the cold laminate floor. Okay, Caitlin, I thought, staring into the gloom. Status report. Checking account, $140. That number was burned into my retinas from when I checked the app at midnight. The student loan auto draft hits tomorrow, $340. Immediate deficit. My chest tightened, a physical squeeze that felt like a blood pressure cuff inflating too high. I rolled over, careful not to disturb the mattress springs, and did the calculations I'd done 1,000 times. If I transferred the grocery money, the $50 I'd earmarked for something that wasn't ramen, I could cover the overdraft fee, but then we wouldn't eat until Friday. I'd been eating Maruchan chicken flavor ramen for lunch 3 days straight. My sodium levels were probably high enough to preserve a mummy, but at 25 cents a pack, it was the only way to keep the boat from capsizing. I looked at Mitchell again. Even in the dim streetlight filtering through the blinds, he looked peaceful, handsome, in that boyish, soft-chinned way that his mother, Lucinda, loved to point out was patrician. He wasn't worrying about the student loan. He wasn't worrying about the rent being due in 3 days. Why would he? He had me. I was the designated worrier. I was the CFO of our sinking ship. I slid out of bed, shivering as the air hit my legs. I needed 90 minutes. That was my rule. 90 minutes to shower, chug the knockoff instant coffee that tasted like burnt dirt, and mentally armor myself for the 18-hour day ahead. I tiptoed into the kitchen. It was a galley kitchen, which is real estate speak for a hallway with a fridge. Unopened mail was stacked on the counter like a monument to my anxiety. I knew what was in those envelopes. Final notice. Past due. Action required. I didn't open them because if I didn't see the bold red font, maybe the debt didn't exist. It was clutter born of avoidance, not messiness. I fired up the electric kettle. While the water boiled, I opened the banking app on my phone again, praying for a glitch, a miracle, a forgotten deposit. Balance, $142. No miracle, just math. You're doing great, Kate, I whispered to the empty room, my voice sounding hollow. Just another rough patch. Mitchell said his commissions are coming. Just hold the line. But the line was breaking. I could feel it snapping, fiber by fiber. I worked 2 jobs, medical billing from 8 to 5, then retail at the mall from 6 to 10, just to keep us treading water. And we weren't even treading anymore. We were drowning, and I was the only one holding a bucket. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. Hi, Suwath. The clock on the microwave read 11:14 p.m. when the front door lock finally clicked. I was standing at the kitchen counter, eating a piece of dry toast because sitting down on the couch felt too much like giving up. If I sat down, the bone-deep exhaustion would settle into my marrow, and I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to stand up again. Mitchell breezed in, bringing a gust of cold air and the faint, sweet scent of something that wasn't our apartment. Maybe expensive cologne, or the kind of air freshener they use in high-end Ubers. "Hey, babe," he said, tossing his keys into the bowl. He didn't look at me. He went straight for the fridge, his eyes glued to his phone screen. "Rough day?" "Standard," I said, brushing crumbs off my work slacks. "Billing system crashed twice. And then a woman at the store screamed at me because we wouldn't return a shirt she'd clearly washed. How was yours?" "Slow," he sighed, grabbing a sparkling water. "You know how sales is. Feast or famine. I gripped the edge of the counter. Mitchell, we've been in famine for 8 months. He finally looked up, his expression tightening into that familiar mask of defensive irritation. I'm building a pipeline, Caitlin. These things take time. I can't force clients to sign contracts. I know, but I gestured to the pile of mail. The rent is due Tuesday. I have $100, Mitchell, total, until my check clears next week. He waved a hand dismissively, popping the tab on his can. I'm handling it. I've got a few things closing next week. Stop stressing so much. You worry too much, you know that? It's bad for your skin. I worry because the math doesn't work, I snapped, my voice rising. I'm working 80 hours a week. You're coming home at 11 o'clock at night. Where have you been since 5? Networking, he said smoothly. Too smoothly. Met a potential client at the Oak Room. Had to buy a round. You have to spend money to make money, Caitlin. That's how the world works. I looked down at his feet. My breath hitched. Are those new? He looked down, feigning confusion. He was wearing sleek brown leather loafers, not the scuffed ones he'd worn this morning. These were pristine. The leather looked soft, expensive. What, these? He shuffled his feet. No, yeah, kind of. I picked them up on clearance at DSW. Dirt cheap, like $20. $20? I stared at them. I worked retail. I knew what cheap shoes looked like, and I knew what Cole Haans looked like. Those weren't $20. Mitchell, those look like the ones you were looking at online, the ones that were $140. They were on clearance, he shouted, slamming his drink down. The noise echoed in the small kitchen. My God, Caitlin, do you have a tracker on me? Are you auditing my wardrobe now? This is insane. You're acting paranoid. I'm not being paranoid, I'm being broke, I yelled back. If you spend $100 on shoes while I'm eating toast for dinner, that's not paranoia, it's an investment. He cut me off, stepping into my personal space. His eyes were cold. I can't meet with high net worth clients wearing sneakers with holes in them. I need to look the part. You don't understand the corporate world, okay? Stick to your billing codes. He brushed past me, heading for the bedroom. I'm exhausted. I've been hustling all day for us, and I come home to this, the Spanish Inquisition. Unbelievable. I stood there in the kitchen, the silence rushing back in to fill the space he'd left. I looked at the dry toast in my hand. He made me feel crazy. He always did. He twisted it until I felt like the villain for asking where our money went. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe exhaustion had warped my brain so much I started seeing betrayal in every shadow. But looking at the muddy footprint his clearance shoe had left on the floor, I didn't feel crazy. I felt sick. 2 days later, the apartment buzzer rang. I froze. We didn't order takeout, we couldn't afford it, and no one visited us. It's probably Amazon, Mitchell called from the couch, not moving. I pressed the intercom. Hello? It's Lucinda, darling. Buzz me up. It's freezing out here. My stomach dropped into my shoes. Lucinda? I looked around the apartment frantically. There was laundry on the chair. The sink had breakfast dishes. It wasn't dirty, but it wasn't Lucinda clean. Lucinda clean required a team of maids and a lack of actual human inhabitants. Your mom is here, I hissed at Mitchell. Oh, great. He sat up, checking his hair and his phone reflection. Let her in. By the time I opened the door, she was already there, filling the hallway with the scent of Chanel No. 5 and judgment. Lucinda didn't walk. She glided. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere coat that probably cost more than my car, and a handbag with gold hardware that caught the hallway light. Mitchell, my baby! She swept past me, air-kissing my cheek without actually making contact. And Caitlin, hello. Hi, Lucinda, I said, closing the door. We weren't expecting you. I was in the neighborhood, she lied. She lived 30 minutes away in a gated community. I just wanted to see my son. She turned to survey the apartment, her nose wrinkling slightly. She ran a manicured finger along the top of the TV stand. Still in this cozy little box, I see. When Lucinda said cozy, she meant pathetic. "We like it, Mom," Mitchell said, but his voice lacked conviction. He stood up and hugged her. "It's home." "For now," she corrected, patting his cheek. "You know, I saw Cassandra the other day, at the club." I stiffened. Cassandra, Mitchell's ex, the one from the good family. "Oh yeah?" Mitchell asked, too casually. "Yes, she's doing marvelous. Just bought a beautiful colonial in Upper Arlington, with her husband, the surgeon. Such refined taste, that girl. I always thought you two made such a striking couple." She looked directly at me as she said it, a polite smile plastered on her face. I forced a smile back. "Can I get you some water, Lucinda, or tea?" "No, thank you." "I can't stay long. I just wanted to discuss Mitchell's birthday." She turned her back to me, focusing entirely on him. "I want to do a proper dinner this year. None of that casual nonsense we did last year." "Mom, we're kind of tight on cash right now," Mitchell started, glancing at me. "Nonsense." She waved a hand. "You're a successful salesman, and you," she glanced back at me, "surely you can manage a simple family dinner. You work so much, Caitlin. Where does it all go?" The implication hung in the air. "You're incompetent." "We have bills, Lucinda," I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. "Student loans, rent." "Ah, yes, the debt." She sighed as if I had contracted a shameful disease on purpose. "Well, regardless, next Saturday. Here, I'll invite the family. Linda, Austin, Dominic, Samantha. Just keep it simple, but nice. You know what I expect." I don't know if we can host 8 people," I stammered. "The grocery budget is—" "Mitchell," Lucinda snapped, her voice sharpening. "Handle this. It's your birthday. Surely your wife can provide a meal for your family." Mitchell looked at me, then at his mother. The choice was made in an instant. He chose the path of least resistance. "It's fine, Mom," he said. "We'll do it. Caitlin can make it work. She's resourceful." "Good," Lucinda beamed. "I'll let everyone know. 6 p.m. sharp." She turned to leave, her coat swishing. As she passed the kitchen counter, she paused, looking at my thrifted cardigan draped over a chair. "You know, Caitlin, simple is fine, but sometimes simple just looks cheap." She walked out, leaving her perfume lingering in the air like a toxic cloud. I looked at Mitchell. "How are we going to pay for a dinner for 8 people?" I whispered. "We have no money." "Figure it out, Kate," he said, picking up the remote. "Just figure it out. Stop being so dramatic." The days leading up to the dinner were a blur of panic and coupon clipping. I was planning a menu based entirely on what was on sale at Aldi: chicken quarters, rice, frozen veggies. I felt like a fraud, bracing myself for Lucinda's sneers. On Thursday night, I was doing laundry. Mitchell was in the shower. I picked up his jeans from the floor, the ones he'd worn on his networking night, and checked the pockets. I always did. He had a habit of leaving pens in there, and ink stains were expensive to fix. My fingers brushed against a crumpled ball of thermal paper. I pulled it out, smoothing it against the top of the washing machine. It was a receipt, K's Jewelers. Date, 3 weeks ago. Item, 14K gold heart pendant with diamond accent. Total, $628.50. The world stopped spinning for a second. $628.50. I looked at my hand. My ring finger was bare. I hadn't worn my wedding band in months because the setting was loose and we couldn't afford the $50 to fix it. I looked at the date. 3 weeks ago. That was the week our rent check bounced. That was the week I had called him crying because we were overdrawn. "No," I whispered. "A mistress. It had to be. The late nights, the networking, the new shoes, the defensiveness about his phone. It all fit. He was seeing someone. He was spending our rent money on jewelry for another woman while I ate ramen. My knees gave out, and I sat on the pile of dirty laundry clutching the receipt. Nausea rolled over me. Who is she? My mind raced. Was it someone at work? The client at the Oak Room? I stood up, adrenaline replacing the exhaustion. I needed to know. I ran to the bedroom. Mitchell's phone was on the nightstand charging. He was still in the shower. I could hear the water running. I knew his passcode, 1234. He wasn't a complex man. I unlocked it. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I opened his texts. Nothing suspicious in the recent threads. Just me, his brother Dominic, a group chat about fantasy football. I checked the calls. One number appeared repeatedly. Unknown. Wait, not unknown. Unsaved. 614-555-0199. Calls at 10 p.m. Calls at 8 a.m. Calls during his networking nights. I scribbled the number onto the back of the receipt. The water in the bathroom turned off. I threw the phone back on the nightstand and sprinted back to the laundry room, my heart roaring in my ears. He was cheating on me. That was where the money was going. Fancy dinners, hotel rooms, gold necklaces. The next day, on my lunch break from the clinic, I sat in my beat-up Honda Civic in the parking lot staring at the number I'd written down. 614-555-0199. I felt like a detective in a bad movie. I typed the number into Google. Nothing. No name attached. I tried Facebook. Nothing. I took a deep breath and dialed the number, blocking my caller ID. Ring. Ring. Serenity Day Spa. This is Jessica. How can I help you? A spa? I froze. Hi, I stammered. I think I have the wrong number. Is this a cell phone? No, ma'am. This is Serenity Day Spa in Easton Town Center. I hung up. A spa? Why was he calling a spa at 10 p.m.? Maybe the mistress worked there. I drove to Easton. It was a 20-minute drive I couldn't afford gas-wise, but I was possessed. I parked and walked into the lobby. It smelled like lavender and money. Hi, I said to the receptionist, trying to look casual in my scrubs. I'm looking for a... Lana? I think my husband said she works here? The receptionist frowned. We don't have a Lana. We have a Lauren. Maybe. I grasped at straws. Does a Mitchell come here often? She stiffened. I can't give out client information, ma'am. Right, of course. I walked out, confused and deflated. Was he paying for spa treatments for her? I checked the bank statement on my phone again. There were withdrawals. POS transaction, Serenity, $300. Last Tuesday, $300. I felt tears prick my eyes. I cut my own hair over the kitchen sink. I used drugstore shampoo, and he was spending $300 at a luxury spa for... who? Lauren? It didn't make sense. If he had a mistress, why buy her spa days with our debit card where I could see the merchant name? It was reckless. Or maybe he just didn't care if I caught him. I drove back to work, sobbing quietly. The betrayal felt physical, a heavy stone in my gut. He was stealing our future to pamper someone else. Saturday morning, the day of the dinner. I was running late. I had to prep the chicken, clean the bathroom again, and somehow make myself look presentable so Lucinda wouldn't make a comment about me looking washed out. I was in the bedroom trying to put in my contact lenses. My hands were shaking from caffeine and stress. Ping. The tiny plastic lens popped off my finger and fell. No, no, no. I dropped to my knees, scanning the carpet. Lenses were expensive. I couldn't lose it. I saw a glint near the baseboard under the bed. I laid flat on my stomach, cheek pressed against the dusty carpet, and reached under the bed frame. My fingers brushed against dust bunnies, an old sock, and something hard and rectangular. It wasn't the lens. I pulled it out. It was a small black leather notebook, moleskin, expensive looking. I sat up, holding it. I'd never seen this before. Mitchell wasn't a journaler. He wasn't organized enough to keep a diary. I opened it. It wasn't a diary. It was a ledger. Mitchell's handwriting, neat and precise, filled the pages. Columns of dates, dollar amounts, notes. Jan 12, $200. Casino, Jan 14, $400. Personal, Jan 20, $800. MEF. I frowned. MEF. I flipped the page. The entries went back months. 18 months, to be exact. Feb 4, $1,200. Transfer. Feb 10, $600. MEF. March 3rd, $2,500. L car payment. My stomach turned to ice. I knew these amounts. I recognized them. That $2,500 in March. That was when he told me his car needed a new transmission. We had drained our savings for that. He said the mechanic only took cash. I looked at the ledger entry again. L car payment. L, I whispered. Lorraine? No. Lucinda. L for Lucinda. I sat on the floor, the lost contact lens forgotten. I felt like I was decoding the Rosetta Stone of my own misery. I flipped to last July. I remembered July. My sister had needed surgery. I wanted to send her $200 to help with bills. Mitchell had screamed at me, "We're broke, Caitlin. We can't save the world." I found the entry for July 14th. July 14th, $2,200. L Club dues. $2,200 for a country club membership, while I cried because I couldn't help my sister. I flipped to September, my dad's funeral. We couldn't afford the flight. I missed it. I missed saying goodbye to my father because Mitchell said we were tapped out. Sep 12, $1,900. L credit card min. Rage, hot and blinding, flooded my vision. There was no mistress. The other woman was his mother. He wasn't cheating on me with sex. He was cheating on me with her. He was funneling our entire life savings into maintaining her fake wealthy lifestyle. Then I saw the entry that stopped my heart. Oct 4, $628.50. L necklace, B-day. Note, K doesn't know. K doesn't know. He wrote it down. He acknowledged the deception. I grabbed my phone. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. I opened Facebook and went to Lucinda's profile. I scrolled back to October. There it was, a selfie. Lucinda, beaming, wearing the gold heart pendant. Caption, "My son treats me like a queen. Early birthday surprise. Blessed in you are my good son." I looked at the receipt in my pocket. The one I thought was for a mistress. It was for her. The spa charges? Her. The networking dinners? Her. The emergency funds? Her. I wasn't just broke. I was being harvested. I needed proof. Not just the ledger. I needed to understand the scale of it. Why did a woman who lived in a gated community and drove a Lexus need my ramen money? I looked at the clock. 9 p.m. Mitchell was still asleep. He always slept in on Saturdays. I grabbed my keys. "Running to get milk!" I yelled at the closed bedroom door. "Mmph," was the only response. I drove to the county recorder's office downtown. It was closed on weekends, but the online terminal kiosk in the lobby was open 24/7 for public records. But as I pulled in, I saw a light on in the side office. Mrs. Higgins. I knew Mrs. Higgins from when I worked at the clinic. She was a patient, a grumpy, no-nonsense woman who had been the county clerk for 40 years. I knocked on the glass. She looked up, squinting, then buzzed me in. "Caitlin, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Mrs. Higgins, I need to look up a property. It's an emergency." "Honey, the system is online. I need to know everything. Liens, mortgages." "Everything." She studied my face. "Whose house?" "Lucinda Vance, 4400 Oak Street." Mrs. Higgins' eyes widened. A slow, malicious smile spread across her face. "Lucinda Vance? That woman cheated at bridge in 1998 and told the whole town my casserole was store-bought." She cracked her knuckles. "Sit down, sugar. Let's dig," she typed furiously. "Well, well, well," Mrs. Higgins murmured. "The lady of the manor isn't doing so hot." She spun the screen around. "Look here. First mortgage? Refinanced 3 years ago. Cash out. Second mortgage? Taken out last year. High interest. Lien filed by American Express. Lien filed by the HOA. Property taxes 2 quarters behind." "She's broke," I whispered. "She's completely broke." "Broke?" Mrs. Higgins laughed. "Honey, she's underwater. She's drowning in debt but still driving that leased Lexus. It's a house of cards." It all clicked. The rough patch. The constant need for cash. Lucinda was maintaining the illusion of wealth, and Mitchell was the bank, my bank. "Can you print this?" I asked. "For Lucinda's downfall?" Mrs. Higgins winked. "I'll print it in color." I raced back to the apartment. It was 10:15 a.m. Mitchell was in the shower, thank God. I could hear him singing. He was in a good mood. Why wouldn't he be? It was his birthday and his mommy was coming over to be worshipped. I pulled the ledger out from under the bed again. I had the papers from Mrs. Higgins tucked in my purse. Now I needed the smoking gun. I opened my phone camera. My hands were shaking violently. "Focus, Caitlin, focus." I started snapping photos. Page 1, click. Page 2, click. The MEF entries, click. The casino losses, click. The note, Kay doesn't know, click. I could hear the water running. Please don't stop, please don't stop. I transferred the photos to Google Drive. The upload bar crawled. 10%, 30%. Our internet was garbage because we had the cheapest plan. 50%. The water turned off. Panic spiked in my chest. I shoved the ledger back under the bed, exactly where I found it, wedged between the mattress and the wall. I stood up, smoothing my shirt. Ding, upload complete. The bathroom door opened. Steam billowed out. Mitchell walked out with a towel around his waist. "Hey, babe," he grinned. "Did you get the milk?" I forced my face into a mask, a smile that felt like it was made of glass. "Yep," I said. "Got the milk and the coffee." "Awesome. Hey, can you iron my blue shirt? Mom loves that shirt." I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man I had shared a bed with for 3 years. The man I had defended. He wasn't a partner. He was a parasite. "Sure," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I'll make sure it's perfect." I told Mitchell I had to go to the store for last-minute herbs. Instead, I drove to the 24-hour FedEx office on 3rd Street. I walked in, clutching my phone and the folder from Mrs. Higgins. "Help yourself to the machines," the clerk mumbled. I logged into my cloud account. I selected all 63 photos of the ledger. I selected the bank statements I had downloaded as PDFs on my phone. I selected the property tax records Mrs. Higgins gave me. Print. The machine whirred to life. Page after page of betrayal spilled out into the tray. Black and white proof of why I was eating ramen. I took the warm stack of papers to a table. I felt like a forensic accountant. I started organizing them, creating evidence packs. One for each guest. I cross-referenced the dates. Ledger, July 14th, $2,200 to Lucinda. Bank statement, July 14th. Transfer to external act. Text message, screenshot. "Sorry, babe, we just can't afford to help your sister." I stapled the text screenshot next to the ledger entry. It was a narrative, a story of cruelty. Ledger, Sep 12, 1/1900 to Lucinda. Event, my father's funeral. Text, "We're tapped out, Kate." I highlighted the lines with a yellow marker. My tears were gone. They had evaporated in the heat of my rage. I wasn't sad anymore. I was cold. I was clinical. I felt a strange detachment, like I was preparing a presentation for work. Project, divorce. Objective, total destruction. I put the packs into a manila folder. "That'll be $18, the clerk said. I paid with the cash I had saved for next week's gas. It was the best money I ever spent. I sat in my car in the parking lot for a moment, the folder on my lap. I thought about tonight, the dinner. I thought about Lucinda's smirk, Mitchell's lies. "Happy birthday, Mitchell," I whispered. I started the engine. I returned to the apartment around 1 p.m., feeling like a spy in my own home. The manila folder full of evidence was burning a hole in my tote bag. Mitchell was in the living room, aggressively fluffing pillows. He was wearing the blue shirt I'd ironed, the one Lucinda liked, and he looked frantic. "Where have you been?" he asked, not looking at me. He was adjusting a framed photo on the wall by a millimeter. "You've been gone 2 hours. Did you get the wine?" "Traffic," I lied smoothly. "Yes, I got the wine." "Did you get the Pinot Grigio from that specific vineyard, the Santa Margherita?" They were out, I said, setting the bag down on the kitchen counter. I had actually bought 2 bottles of the generic store brand Pinot that cost $5.99 each. I'd soaked the labels off in the sink earlier and decanted them into a fancy glass carafe we got as a wedding gift. I got a reserve blend. The guy said it's better. Mitchell stopped fluffing. He looked at me, scanning my face for incompetence. A reserve blend? Kate, you know she has a sensitive palate. If it tastes cheap... It won't, I said. It tastes like grapes and ethanol, Mitchell. Just like the money you stole tastes like betrayal. And the napkins? In the bag. I had bought the heavy-duty paper ones, not linen. We couldn't afford linen. Okay. He ran a hand through his hair. I just want this to be perfect. You know how she gets when things are messy. I watched him spin in circles, stressing over the aesthetics of a party funded by theft. It was fascinating, in a morbid way. He was terrified of her. He wasn't doing this out of love. He was doing it out of a desperate need for approval that he was buying with my paycheck. Why don't you go shower? I suggested. I'll handle the setup. Yeah, good idea. He kissed my cheek. It felt like being kissed by a stranger. Thanks, babe. You're a lifesaver, really. I waited until the bathroom door clicked shut. I moved with surgical precision. I took the manila folder out of my bag. Inside were the 8 evidence packs I'd assembled at the print shop. I opened the buffet drawer in the dining area, the one we never used because it was filled with junk mail and batteries. I cleared a space and placed the folder inside, right next to the serving spoons. I stood there for a second, my hand resting on the cool wood of the drawer. Inside that drawer was a grenade, and in about 5 hours I was going to pull the pin. Guests started arriving at 5:45 p.m. The air in the apartment grew heavy, sucked up by the tension radiating off Mitchell. Dominic and Samantha were first. Dominic was Mitchell's older brother, a mechanic who worked hard, had grease under his fingernails even when scrubbed, and actually possessed a spine. Samantha was a nurse, kind but exhausted, the type of woman who always brought a side dish even when you told her not to. Hey guys, Dominic said, handing Mitchell a 6-pack of craft beer. Happy birthday, little brother. Thanks, Dom. Mitchell took the beer, glancing nervously at the door. Did you see Mom's car? Not yet, Samantha said, hugging me. She smelled like peppermint and antiseptic. Caitlin, you look intense. You okay? Just focused on the food, I said, forcing a smile. You know how it is. I brought potato salad, she whispered, just in case the portions are, you know. She knew we were broke. She was trying to help. I wanted to hug her and tell her everything right then, but I held back. Wait for the cake. Next came Aunt Lydia, Lucinda's sister. She was the family historian and the only one who occasionally checked Lucinda's ego. Then Austin, the cousin who worked in finance downtown, wearing a suit on a Saturday because he wanted everyone to know he worked in finance. Finally, at 6:20 p.m., 20 minutes late as per protocol, Lucinda arrived. The door opened and the atmosphere shifted. She swept in, bringing a gust of cold November air and that overpowering floral perfume. She was wearing a new dress. I recognized it. It was in the window of Nordstrom last week. $450. My $450, I thought. Sorry I'm late, she announced, not sounding sorry at all. Traffic was horrid, and then I couldn't find parking. Mitchell, why do you live in a complex with such terrible parking? Hi, Mom, Mitchell said, taking her coat. You look great. I try, she sighed, smoothing her dress. She turned to me. Her eyes did a quick up and down scan, pausing on my outfit, black slacks and a blouse I'd had for 5 years. Caitlin, you're wearing that. Hello, Lucinda, I said. Can I get you a drink? White wine, if you have anything decent. I poured the $5.99 swill from the fancy carafe. She took a sip, swirled it in her mouth, and nodded. Okie. At least you didn't buy the grocery store poison. I almost laughed. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to stop the hysteria from bubbling up. She began her tour. It was a ritual. She walked around the living room, touching things. She ran a finger along the bookshelf I'd dusted 3 times. She inspected the throw pillows. "It's just so compact," she said to Aunt Lydia, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "I don't know how they live like this. It's like a dorm room." "It's clean, Lucy," Lydia said sharply. "Leave it be." "I'm just saying," Lucinda sniffed. "Mitchell was raised in a 4-bedroom colonial. This must be stifling for him." I stood in the kitchen doorway watching Mitchell. He didn't defend our home. He didn't defend me, he just laughed nervously. "We're saving for a house, Mom. It's temporary." "Saving?" she scoffed. "With what money? Caitlin's retail job?" The room went quiet. Dominic looked at his shoes. Samantha aggressively stirred her drink. I said nothing. I just smiled. "Keep talking, Lucinda. Dig the hole deeper." Dinner was served at 7 p.m. I had made roasted chicken thighs, rice pilaf, and green beans. It was simple, hearty, and cost about $18 total for 8 people. Lucinda sat at the head of the table, Mitchell's birthday, but her seat. She held court, dissecting the chicken with surgical disdain. "So," she began, pointing a fork at Mitchell, "I ran into the Millers at the club yesterday. Their son just made partner at his firm." "That's nice, Mom," Mitchell said, chewing quickly. "It is nice. It's what happens when you have focus." She looked at me. "Focus is so important. Some people just drift, taking whatever jobs they can get. No career path." I kept eating. The rice tasted like cardboard in my dry mouth. "Mitchell has focus," she continued. "I always made sure of that. Private tutors, the best camps. I invested everything in him. And look at him now." She reached over and patted his hand. "He's the man of the house, providing." Austin cleared his throat. "Market's been tough lately, though. Sales down across the board?" "Not for Mitchell," Lucinda insisted. "He told me last week he's on track for a record quarter. Weren't you, darling?" Mitchell turned a shade of pale usually reserved for dead fish. Yeah. Things are picking up. We have some good leads." "See?" Lucinda beamed. "Success is a mindset. We don't do struggle in this family. We solve problems." "Speaking of solving problems," Dominic said, trying to change the subject. "How's the house, Mom? I heard you had some issues with the roof." I watched closely. Lucinda waved her hand airily. "Oh, that! Taken care of. I had the contractors out immediately. You can't let these things fester. It costs a pretty penny, but quality always does." L Home Repair, $200, I recalled from the ledger. Date, 2 weeks ago. Mitchell's excuse to me, car broke down. "Must be nice," Samantha muttered under her breath. "It is," Lucinda said, hearing her, "but I earned it. I sacrificed for years so I could enjoy my golden years. I don't rely on anyone." I locked eyes with her. "No one?" I asked. My voice was calm, cutting through the clatter of silverware. "Excuse me?" She looked affronted that the help was speaking. "You don't rely on anyone? Financially?" She laughed, a brittle, high-pitched sound. "Caitlin, don't be absurd. I own my home. I have my investments. I'm not the one renting a shoebox." Mitchell choked on his water. "Kate, can we get more water, please?" I stood up slowly. "Of course, darling. Anything for the birthday boy." I cleared the dinner plates. The mood was strained. People were sensing the friction, the weird energy coming off Mitchell, who was sweating through his blue shirt. I was in the kitchen, scraping plates, when I realized I needed the serving knife for the cake. It was still on the table. I walked back into the dining room quietly. The carpet muffled my footsteps. The conversation had split into small groups. Dominic and Austin were talking sports at one end. Lucinda was leaning in close to Mitchell at the other end. Her hand was on his forearm, her grip tight. I paused behind the bookshelf divider. They couldn't see me. The noise of the room, the laughter, the clinking glass, was a hum, but her voice cut through it. "You look tired, baby," she cooed. "I am tired, Mom. The pressure is—" Mitchell rubbed his temples. "I know. "It's her," Lucinda whispered. I froze. "She's dragging you down, Mitchell. Look at this place. Look at her. She's a millstone. You need someone with ambition, someone who brings assets to the marriage, not student loans." "Mom, not now," Mitchell murmured. "When, then? You've been carrying her for 3 years. It's enough. You've been a good Samaritan long enough." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hiss, but I heard every syllable. "Just leave her after the cake. Do it tonight. Tell her it's over. I have the guest room ready for you. We'll get a lawyer on Monday." I held my breath. I waited for him to say no. I waited for him to say, "She's my wife." I waited for him to say, "I love her." Mitchell looked at his mother. He looked at the table. Then he nodded. "Yeah," he whispered. "Okay, after the cake." The air left my lungs. It wasn't just financial. It was a planned execution. They had discussed this. This was the exit strategy. Use me until I broke, then discard me and move back into the guest room funded by my stolen wages. I stepped back into the kitchen shadows. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady as stone. "After the cake," I whispered to myself. "Okay, let's do cake." I stood in the galley kitchen. The fluorescent light hummed overhead. On the counter sat the cake. It was a quarter-sheet cake from Kroger, vanilla with white frosting. "Happy Birthday, Mitchell," written in blue gel that was slightly smeared. It cost $12.99. I opened the buffet drawer. I took out the folder. I took out the evidence packs, 8 neat stacks of paper stapled at the corner. I grabbed the serving tray, a cheap plastic one painted to look like silver. I placed the cake in the center. Then, around the cake, like a border of garnish, I arranged the dossiers. 1 for Lucinda, 1 for Mitchell, 1 for Dominic, 1 for Samantha, 1 for Austin, 1 for Lydia, 1 for the empty chair for dramatic effect, and 1 for me. I looked at the arrangement. It was beautiful. The contrast between the cheap processed sugar and the stark black and white financial records was art. "Caitlin," Mitchell called from the dining room, "is dessert coming? Mom has to get going soon." "Just a minute," I called back. My voice sounded bright, cheerful. I lit the candles. 3 and 0. 30. The flame flickered. I took a deep breath. "Happy birthday to you," I sang softly. I picked up the tray. I walked into the dining room. "Happy birthday to you." The family joined in, singing the familiar drone-like dirge. "Happy birthday, dear Mitchell." I set the tray down in the center of the table with a heavy thud. The singing tapered off. Mitchell leaned forward to blow out the candles. Then he stopped. He saw the papers surrounding the cake. He squinted. What is this?" Lucinda put on her reading glasses. "Is this a game? Trivia?" I stood at the head of the table behind Mitchell. "Go ahead," I said, my voice projecting clearly to the back of the room. "Take a slice and take a packet. It's part of the gift." Dominic reached out and picked up the stack nearest to him. Samantha did the same. Austin, being a finance guy, grabbed his immediately, flipping to the second page. Mitchell picked up the one in front of him. I saw the color drain from his face in real time. It was like watching a bucket of white paint spill over his head. He recognized the handwriting. "Caitlin," he choked. Don't what?" I asked pleasantly. "Don't share your hobby? Mitchell has been very busy, everyone. He's been keeping a very detailed diary." "Caitlin, stop!" He stood up, knocking his chair back. "This is private. Put it away." "Sit down, Mitchell," Dominic said. His voice was low, dangerous. He was reading the first page. "Sit the hell down." "What is this?" Lucinda asked, looking confused. She looked at the paper. "Why is my name here? L Club Dues." "That's a great question, Lucinda," I said. "Why is your name in a ledger tracking withdrawals from Mitchell's and my joint bank account?" The silence in the room was absolute. You could hear the refrigerator humming in the next room. This is Austin adjusted his glasses, his professional demeanor kicking in. This is a ledger of transactions, cash withdrawals, transfers. He looked up at Mitchell. Structuring? You kept the withdrawals under $900 to avoid bank flags? Mitchell stammered. It's not what it looks like. It looks like theft, Austin said flatly. Samantha gasped. She held up a page, her hand trembling. Mitchell, this date, October 15th. She looked at him, eyes watering. You called us crying. You said your transmission blew. You asked to borrow $800. We lent it to you. We took it out of our vacation fund. She pointed to the highlighted line on her paper. Oct 15, Dep from Dom, $800. Oct 15, pay to L, prop tax, $800. You didn't fix your car, Samantha whispered. You paid her property tax. Mitchell looked at Dominic. Dom, please, she was behind. They were going to put a lien on the house. You lied to me, Dominic said. He stood up slowly. He was a big guy, and he looked ready to tear the table in half. You looked me in the eye, told me you were stranded on the highway, and you took money from my family to pay for her taxes. And here, Aunt Lydia spoke up. She was flipping through the pages furiously. March, the nursing home scare. She glared at Lucinda. You told us you needed money for a deposit on a facility. We all chipped in. I gave you $500. She pointed to the ledger. March 20th, L Spa package trip, $1,200. You went to a spa, Lydia screeched. We thought you were dying. You were getting a mud wrap. I needed to de-stress, Lucinda yelled, finally finding her voice. The stress of the situation was killing me. The situation being that you're broke, I asked. I pulled out the property records Mrs. Higgins gave me. Show them, Mitchell. Or should I? Caitlin, please, Mitchell begged. We can talk about this later, just us. No, I said. We can't. Because 5 minutes ago, your mother told you to dump me after the cake. Remember? You nodded. You agreed. The room gasped, a synchronized intake of breath. She did what? Dominic asked. She told him to leave me, to use me up and throw me away. So I figured, why wait? Let's settle the accounts now. Lucinda stood up. She tried to muster her usual imperious dignity, but her hands were shaking. This is an invasion of privacy. How dare you snoop through my son's things? This is illegal. It's a joint account, Lucinda, I said. It's my money. I paid for that dress you're wearing. I paid for your oaky wine. I paid for the gas in your Lexus. I am his mother, she shrieked. He owes me. I raised him. I sacrificed for him. So he steals from his wife? Austin asked. That's the repayment plan? He didn't steal, she insisted. He helped family. That's what good sons do. You wouldn't understand. You bean counter. I understand fraud, Austin said calmly, and this is textbook. You're misappropriating funds. Mitchell, Lucinda turned to him, desperate. Tell them she's crazy. Tell them you authorized these expenses. Mitchell stood there, trapped between the two women who defined his life. He looked at the ledger. He looked at me. He started. You didn't think I'd find out, I interrupted. I picked up my copy of the dossier. I flipped to the last page, the receipt for the necklace, and the note. Read the note, Mitchell. He looked down. L necklace. K doesn't know. K doesn't know, I read aloud. You wrote that. You knew it was wrong. You knew you were deceiving me. You weren't helping family. You were running a con. I bought the necklace because she was sad. Mitchell burst out, tears streaming down his face. She was crying because she couldn't afford the club dues anymore. She was going to lose her status. I just wanted her to be happy. So you bought her a diamond necklace, I said, my voice cracking for the first time, while I glued my shoes back together, while I missed my dad's funeral? Mitchell froze. He seemed to remember the funeral for the first time. Kate, you told me we had no money, I said. You let me grieve alone because you couldn't spare the cash from her spa fund. He had no answer. The silence stretched out, heavy and suffocating. The candles on the cake had burned down, dripping wax onto the happy birthday icing. I looked around the table. The party was over. The illusion was dead. Get out, I said. Lucinda blinked. Excuse me? Get out of my apartment, I said. My apartment, my name is on the lease. I checked. Mitchell is listed as an occupant. I am the primary. You can't kick me out, Lucinda spat. This is my son's home. Not anymore, I said. Take your son, take your reserve blend wine, and get out. Dominic stood up. Come on, Samantha, we're leaving. He looked at Mitchell. Don't call me Mitch, not for a long time. He walked over to me and hugged me hard. I'm sorry, Kate. I'm so sorry. If you need anything, moving truck, money, you call me. Thank you, Dom, I whispered. Austin stood up. I'm leaving, too. This is legally compromising. He looked at Lucinda with pure disgust. You need a lawyer, Aunt Lucinda, because the IRS might be interested in some of these gifts. Lucinda paled. Aunt Lydia grabbed her purse. I defended you, Lucy, for 40 years. No more. She walked out without looking back. The door clicked shut behind them. It was just me, Mitchell, and Lucinda. Caitlin, Mitchell pleaded, stepping toward me. Please, we can fix this. I'll stop giving her money. We can go to therapy. Therapy? I laughed. You plotted to leave me tonight. You don't want therapy. You want a roommate who pays the bills. I wasn't going to do it. He lied. I just nodded to shut her up. I don't care, I said. I pointed to the door. Go, both of you, now. Where am I supposed to go? Lucinda demanded. I've been drinking. Call an Uber, I said. Use Mitchell's phone. I'm sure I've paid for the data plan. Fine. Lucinda grabbed her coat. Come on, Mitchell. We don't need to stay where we aren't wanted. You can come to my house. Your house? I asked. The one with 2 mortgages and a lien? She glared at me with pure hatred. You ruined everything. No, I said. I just turned on the lights. Mitchell lingered. He looked at me, then at his mother. Go, Mitchell, I said. Go be a good son. He slumped his shoulders. He grabbed his keys. He didn't look back. They walked out. I locked the deadbolt. I slid the chain into place. I leaned my forehead against the cool metal of the door and listened to their footsteps fade down the hallway. Then I slid down the door to the floor, pulled the generic paper napkins toward me, and finally cried. 1 week later, the morning air was crisp. I stood in the parking lot watching Dominic hoist the last box into the back of his pickup truck. My life fit into 6 boxes: clothes, books, the coffee maker, my grandmother's quilt, everything else, the furniture, the TV, the appliances. I left. I didn't want anything Mitchell had touched. That's it, Kate, Dominic said, slamming the tailgate. You ready? Yeah, I said, I'm ready. I turned to look at the apartment complex one last time. It looked different now. Smaller, less like a prison and more like a mistake I had finally corrected. Suddenly, a car screeched into the lot. The Lexus. Lucinda got out. She looked unraveled. Her hair wasn't done. She was wearing sweatpants. I'd never seen her in sweatpants. You! She screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me across the lot. You witch! Dominic stepped in front of me. Mom, get back in the car. She destroyed us, Lucinda wailed, ignoring him. She marched toward me. Mitchell lost his job. The rumors got back to his boss. Austin told everyone. I'm going to lose the house. That's not my fault, Lucinda, I said calmly. I didn't hide behind Dominic. I stepped out to face her. You spent money you didn't have. You humiliated me, she shrieked. You aired our dirty laundry. I returned your receipts, I corrected. There's a difference. I hope you rot, she spat. I hope you end up alone and miserable in some gutter. I looked at her, really looked at her. a sad, desperate woman standing in a parking lot screaming at her son's ex-wife because her house of cards had fallen. I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt pity. "Goodbye, Lucinda," I said. I turned my back on her. "Don't you turn your back on me," she screamed. I climbed into the truck. Samantha was in the back seat. She squeezed my shoulder. "Drive," I told Dominic. As we pulled away, I saw Mitchell standing by the entrance of the building. He was watching us leave. He looked small. He raised a hand like he wanted to wave, but let it drop. We turned the corner, and they were gone. The bakery. We drove to the other side of town, to a street that smelled like yeast and sugar. Rose, the bakery owner, was waiting at the side door. She was a woman made of flour and stern kindness. "You the runaway?" she asked, wiping her hands on her apron. "That's me," I said. "Room's upstairs. It's small, but it's quiet. Rent is $500. Shift starts at 4 a.m. "I'll be there," I said. We carried the boxes up the narrow stairs. The studio was tiny, slanted ceilings, one window facing the street. But as I set my box down, the sun hit the floorboards, illuminating dust motes dancing in the light. It was empty. It was mine. My name on the lease, my money in the bank, my life. Dominic and Samantha stayed for pizza. We sat on the floor drinking cheap beer and laughing about nothing. When they left, I lay on my air mattress staring at the ceiling. I checked my bank app. Balance, $412. It wasn't much, but it was all there. No pending transactions to L. Club dues. I closed my eyes and slept without an alarm for the first time in 3 years. 3 months later, it's been 90 days since the red wedding of birthday dinners, as Austin calls it. Life is different. Harder in some ways, but infinitely easier in the ways that matter. The divorce. It's finalized. Mitchell didn't contest it. He couldn't afford a lawyer, and Lucinda certainly couldn't pay for one. We did a dissolution. I took my debt, student loans. He took his debt, credit cards, loans from family. He tried to argue I should take half the credit card debt since it was household expenses, but I sent his lawyer the K doesn't know photo. The lawyer dropped the argument immediately. Mitchell. I heard from Dominic that Mitchell is living in Lucinda's basement. He's working at a car rental agency near the airport. He texted me once, a long, rambling paragraph about how he was under a lot of pressure and didn't know how to say no to her. I didn't reply. I blocked the number. I don't need explanations. I have the ledger. Lucinda. The house is in foreclosure. Turns out, once the family, Lydia, Austin, Dominic, stopped bailing her out, the math caught up with her fast. She's apparently trying to sue the country club for wrongful termination of her membership. Good luck with that. Me. I'm tired. I won't lie. I work at the bakery from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. Then I go to the clinic from 9 to 5. I smell like bread and antiseptic constantly. My hands are dry, my back hurts. But here's the kicker. I have $200 in my savings account. Real money. I bought a pair of boots yesterday. Not because I needed them, but because I liked them. I paid cash. I didn't have to ask permission. I didn't have to check if a mom emergency had drained the account. I walked home wearing them, listening to the crunch of snow, and I realized something. I used to think revenge would taste sweet, like that sheet cake was supposed to. But it doesn't. Revenge is just necessary paperwork. Freedom tastes like warm sourdough bread at 4:30 in the morning, eaten in a room that nobody can kick you out of. And it is delicious. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.